Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be going through the England versus Spain quarterfinals game. We're going to be analyzing the game plans that both teams were trying to implement, as well as some individual performances here on She Scores Bangers. England, the hosting country for the Women's Euros this year, was able to beat Spain 2-1 and move on to the semi-finals. Georgia Stanway was able to get that winning goal in extra time in the 96th minute, which was an absolute screamer, by the way. Let's talk a little bit about the starting lineups. For England, it was the exact same starting 11 that we have seen Serena Wiegman pick for the 3 group stages games. It was your regular 4-2-3-1, Ellen White as the main striker, Mead and Hemp on the wings, behind her you had Frank Kirby. The 2 pivoting midfielders were Stanway and Walsh. For Spain, there was 4 changes that Vilda implemented compared to the lineup he had in the final group stages game. Olga started as the left back. Patry dropped back into the defensive midfield spot. Abelere was also right beside Bonmati in the midfield, and up top, finally we had a natural striker, Esther. This 4-1-4-1 formation was actually perfect for the Spanish, considering how they were trying to box and really suffocate the English, which we are going to be diving into a little bit more in the video. Personally, looking at the lineups, I was very excited to see the battle between Walsh and Bonmati. These young stars have a ton of potential, and I'm pretty sure for the next at least 10 years, we're going to be seeing these two battle it out on the national teams and possibly even club levels if Walsh maybe moves over to Spain. Regardless, so really recapping the first half, we saw Spain double marking Beth Mead. Whenever Mead got the ball, she was boxed out by at least 2 players. Olga was definitely one of them. Patry was a frequent face in there as well, really restricting that wing movement. It was very similar to Hemp. We saw a lot of battles between her and Ona as well as Cardona. So it was very clear that Spain was trying to have one of the midfielders drop, help the fullback, and box whoever the winger was for England. And that's not how we usually see Spain play. In fact, they're known to have their fullbacks go up pretty high and play with kind of a high line in general. And so one thing that was quite obvious is Spain kind of dropped playing that high line and was making sure the fullbacks did not overcommit in front as much as they usually do. This allowed them to double mark the wingers, which they were quite successful in the first half specifically, and have a lot of passes in the back. They were very comfortable, even when they were being pressed or pressured, to have that possession and passes in the back. Usually when they have that high line present, a lot of the passes actually take place in the midfield, whereas this time when the fullbacks stayed a little bit backwards, there were more passes taking place in the deeper end of their pitch. It also almost acted a little bit of a bait for the English players. England made it very present that they were not necessarily trying to press the Spanish and take their possession. Spain is widely known for being able to hold possession, play very quick football, make sure passes are taking place, the quick tiki-taka that we see, so they're never really in one place. Pressing such style of play can leave you overexposed. It can leave you also to overcommit to that certain player. England does have a very good high press when they do implement it, and we saw that in the group stages. For example, when they were pressing the Norwegian defense, they were not giving them any time to pass the ball, and they had a lot of individual blunders because of that. Spain is able to move that ball quickly, so if you give them time or not, it's not going to matter because they're still going to have that ability to move the ball around. So for example, let's say Ona had the ball. If you had both Hemp and Kirby go and press her to take that possession, the Spanish players are very good in supporting their player that has that ball to move it around. So what most likely was going to happen, Ona was going to have a ton of support, she was going to be able to move that ball. What just happened though was Kirby and Hemp both overcommitted to Ona, leaving a ton of spaces specifically in that wing. And so when Spain was doing a lot of passes in the back, it kind of baited these English players to start pulling forward a little bit more, despite them not actually wanting to press. With that being said, England's players have high mobility. They used this to their advantage to take away possession. They were trying to disturb the passes as they were happening rather than pressing these players. That's a big gamble because it's not very easy to disturb passes, especially very quick passes. But you have both Walsh and Stanway in the midfield, which are both very mobile. They were finding a lot of these empty pockets, a lot of these empty spaces where the Spanish were trying to pass and disturbing that. That was a very fun technical battle to see. You had a team that was not necessarily pressing to get the ball. They were almost giving you that possession. Take that possession, pass the ball as much as you want. We're not going to press you, but we're going to disturb you a lot and kind of frustrate you to start messing up these passes. And Spain was able to showcase some very perfectly executed passes, and they had very good pass build-ups to go forward. They had a lot of fun on the left wing where Lucy Bronze was. In fact, they were always overlapping 2 or 3 players specifically in that area, and so with those passes that they were able to complete, it was quite successful for them to go forward. However, they could not finish. It's the finishing issues that has caused Spain over and over again. When England got possession, it was very obvious that Millie Bright was the target person to send in these long balls. How I understood it was they were trying to build from the defense straight into the attacking line, almost skip that midfield build-up. But when your wingers are being boxed up by 2, sometimes even 3 players, and Ellen White is almost always offside, it wasn't very successful. The last 10 minutes, they were able to kind of switch that up. They had Leah Williamson drive into the midfield. We saw Williamson able to build from the middle, slightly a little bit more forward and higher up the pitch, giving England a little bit more momentum and give them a ton of more chances going forward. Possession was almost actually split in half. You had 49% to England and 51% to Spain. It was also razor thin when it came to shots on target, so it was very, very close. You had goalkeepers both be tested. Right before the second half kicked off, Antena de Castillo came on the pitch. She's so quick, she's so fast, she's so confident, she plays with so much flair. I really, really rate her. In fact, if you check out our video that we made right before the Euros kicked off, discussing 5 young players that you need to keep an eye out, she was on the list, and I truly, truly believe if she was able to continue in the Euros, she was going to be game-changing. And actually, we did see her be game-changing in this game. It took less than 10 minutes for Gonzalez to put Spain in the lead. De Castillo quite literally murdered Daly on national television, providing a beautiful ball to Gonzalez, who all she needed to do was get a little tap in, and it was in. Quick passes, short passes, calm finishing, just how we know the Spanish is able to play. In the first half, Spain was sending a lot of overhead crosses, which would make sense considering 4 out of the 5 goals that they scored in the group stages were headers. But Millie Bright was just a brick wall in there. It looked like she had a magnet on her head that was just attracting the ball every time they crossed the ball. They pretty much failed miserably to get any good headers connecting with any of the crosses, so that was clearly something they completely abandoned going into the second half. They were playing a lot more lower balls, which, I mean, clearly 2 or 3 and they were able to get a goal. So just right there, Spain was able to adjust very nicely, change how they were attacking, and get a goal in. Serena Wiegman obviously had to hit that panic button and have a triple. Substitutions come on. Ella Toone, Alessia Russo, and Chloe Kelly all came on. I thought all 3 of the substitutions made absolute sense. I don't think Beth Mead was unfortunately getting any of the service that she wanted. She was not getting as many runs as she usually does. Ellen White coming off for Russo made a lot of sense. Probably the most amount of sense a substitution could make. In fact, I think it should have happened a lot earlier. Ella Toone for Frank Kirby, great substitutions. And then also, thank God, Rachel Daly made out for Alex Greenwood. I don't want to see Rachel Daly in that position ever again. Let's be honest here. Rachel Daly did very, very well in that position for the last 3 games. She was a great fullback, sending in very good service and connecting with her winger very well. However, when it came to defending and really having that defensive-minded football, she was really struggling. Spain was able to pinpoint that as a weakness, pour on a ton of pressure, and every single flaw of hers, unfortunately, did come out. When the pressure was getting to her and when a lot of players were pouring on attacks from her end, the fact that she was playing out of position was quite clear, and so Alex Greenwood coming in and providing that defensive stability was very, very important. In the 82nd minute, Ella Toone was able to equalize after an assist from Russo. Again, this was 6 minutes away from Spain going into the semifinals and England potentially being knocked out. And just like that, the second half ended and we had to go into extra time. It only took Georgia Stanway 6 minutes to send in an absolute screamer of a goal. If this does not end up being the goal of the tournament, I don't know what we're going to have to see, but it's going to have to be a miracle. Georgia Stanway is no stranger to scoring bangers like this. We have seen her do it over and over again at Manchester City. Shooting out of the box is what makes her so, so lethal. And just like that, Spain was leading 1-0, and now they're 2-1 down. We saw Sarieji come on in the 100th minute. This is another player that, in my opinion, has been very mistreated by Vilda. The fact that she never got a start in the past 4 games is criminal. The fact that she only got 20 minutes of game time this game is also criminal. Don't know how you cannot be starting her. She's the perfect number 9 for you, and you bring her on the 100th minute. It doesn't make sense. This is another question that Vilda has to be answering, because how do you have this on-form player? She's young, she's fast, she's on fire, she can score, she's very, very dangerous in front of goal, not starting for you. England was able to hold on. Mary Earps actually showed to be a tough rock this game. She wasn't really greatly tested in the group stages much, so seeing her come up a challenge, it was really good. Now, what this means for England moving forward is I definitely think Serena Wiegman needs to mix up that starting 11. Fatigue was a component that was very present. It was very apparent in Lucy Bronze whenever she was going forward, sprinting forward and lost the ball or whatever and had to go back. She was almost recovering as she was going backwards. A lot of these players had just gone at least 110 minutes. Credit has to be given when credit is due. They showed great resilience. They picked up the pieces. They showed great discipline. The substitutions were spot on. They adapted. They changed game plans. They were able to attack in many different ways. They were ready to go into physical battles, and I think everybody was talking about England not having a real test. This was a brilliant, brilliant test, and I think they passed. I'd say B+. Jokes aside, it really does show us that this England team is definitely on another tier. Also, fun fact, Serena Wiegman is actually undefeated in her Euros career, which I don't think any other manager is. She has literally never lost a game in the Euros competition, ever. Like, ever. That's impressive. Not so impressive, Vilda has actually never been able to win a knockout match in a competitive competition. I just want you to think about that again. He has been with Spain for 7 years, and not a single time was he able to win a knockout match with them. And what blows me away even more is that they just re-signed his contract before the Euros kicked off. A manager that has constantly underachieved with a brilliant squad, has also made very questionable squad selections, never brought the Spanish to winning anything major. How do you re-sign his contract before the Euros? So unless some sacking happens or some firing happens, he's here for the World Cup. And some fans might say, well, they came up against England, they had quite a tough group. Did they really underachieve? Group stages, their performances were not the best. A big red flag is that final third, the finishing component is missing hugely. So it's a hard call now. Do you sack him? Do you change a little bit of the management? What do you do? Adding on to that, Alexia Putellas injured her ACL a day before the kickoff of the Euros. If I was a manager, I would make sure she was in bubble wrap, resting in the couch in the most luxurious hotel ever. And this is not to say or diminish their performance against England. I think it was possibly the best performance they've had during this competition. They were tough, they were disciplined. That first half was incredibly technical from them. It was good, it was a very good showing. This matchup could have been a final matchup. So again, getting knocked out in the quarter stages of the competition against England is not the worst, but looking at your roster, looking at the players you had, literally on the bench, not even the starting 11, at the chances you could have finished off, the level Spain is expected to play at, it probably disappoints. Aitana Bonmati was absolutely incredible in the last 4 games. So was Anna Battier. I think she showed to be absolutely world class. It's going to be interesting to see how the federation handles this loss and handles another underachievement with a very, very bright squad. England will now move on to the semi-finals to either face Sweden or Belgium. Please let us know what you thought of these game plans that these managers came out with. Who do you think underperformed? Who do you think overperformed? Who was the star for you in both of these squads? Please share all your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to us here on YouTube and possibly even hit the bell button to get some notifications. And follow us on Twitter to stay updated and to continue enjoying the beautiful game. I will see you later.